Okay. Can you see the picture of the turkey? The Children's Book of Thanksgiving Stories. Edited by Dickinson. All right, let's put this here. Do you see this jar? It's got some raisins in there. I put some raisins and I put some baking soda and vinegar. And do you see some bubbles coming up? See some bubbles coming up from the bottom? It's going to the, the top level of the water. Well, baking soda and vinegar, top level of the liquid. And let's see. Let me just find something here. Okay, so why is it doing that? The raisins are actually lifted by these bubbles because they contain carbon dioxide. When I mix the baking soda and vinegar, it makes a chemical called carbon dioxide, and those raisins are actually being lifted by the carbon dioxide bubbles. So anyway, you see, it goes very slow, and I thought when I read you the story, why you could have something else to look at. So let's do this. Okay. And I don't know if I mentioned this. It was written in 2000. It was written in 1915. This is 2020. 2020 take away 1915 is 105. It was written 105 years ago. Okay. Let's see. Okay. The country of the greedy, well known in history, was ruled by a king who had much trouble. And his subjects were well behaved, but they had one sad fault. They were too fond of pies and tarts. It was as disagreeable to them to swallow a spoonful of soup as it were so much seawater, which of course seawater is full of salt. It has a lot of salt. And it would take a policeman to make them open their mouths for a bit of meat, either boiled or roasted. This deplorable taste made the fortunes of the pastry cooks, but also of the apothecaries. Now, what does apothecaries mean? Apothecaries, we don't really use that word much. It was a word that was used during this time when the story was written, and it was a place that made up and sold medicines. Now, when people today go to get medicines, where do they often go? A pharmacy. Such as Walgreens or Rite Aid or something like that. And a pharmacologist would make up the medicine. But in those days, it was called apothecaries. So let's continue. Families ruined themselves, and pills and powders, chamomile, rhubarb, and peppermint trebled in price. So that means it was tripled in price or tripled many times. So, these the people, the companies who made up these concoctions were really brought up the price and were making a lot of money off of it. So they also made other disagreeable remedies such as castor, which I will not name. I don't know why, but maybe they think it's too yucky to talk about. I don't know. The king of the greedy sought long for the means of correcting this, unhealthy passion for sweets, but even the faculty were puzzled. Your Majesty, said the great court doctor, Olibriers, at his last audience, you people look like putty. They are incurable. Their senseless love for good eating will bring them all, make them all sick. There's some words in these stories written a long time ago that are considered, we don't use them. That might be considered, inappropriate or scary. So I'll just edit it a little bit, and it will mean close to the same thing. And so this view of things did not suit the king. He was wise, which means smart, and saw very plainly that a monarch without subjects would be but a sorry king. Happily, after this utter failure of the doctors, there came into the mind of His Majesty a first-class idea. He telegraphed for Mother Mitchell, the most celebrated of all pastry cooks. Mother Mitchell soon arrived with her black cat, Fan Free Looch, I think I'm pronouncing it correctly, or something like that, who accompanied her everywhere. He was an incomparable cat, so I guess no other cat could compare to him. He was incomparable. He had not his equal as an advisor and a taster of tarts. So apparently he liked the sweets too. Now, there was just a word that I wanted to bring up. Let's see. Where was it? Oh, telegraph. Telegraph. A telegraph was a device used for sending and receiving messages over long distances. And sometimes codes were used. Have you ever heard of the Morse code? That is the Morse code. That was, part of the telegraph system. There was something that was used within the telegraph system. So I'm not sure what type they used. It doesn't say so far anyway. So Mother Mitchell, having respectfully inquired what she and her cat could do for His Majesty, the king demanded of the astonished pastry cook a tart as big as the Capitol. Holy smokes. Bigger even, if possible, but no smaller. And they have an exclamation point that really, makes it show it's a big deal. When the king uttered this astounding order, deep emotion was shown by the chamberlains. That's something we have to look up. Chamberlains. And the pages and lackeys. Nothing but the respect due to his presence prevented them from crying, "Long live your Majesty!" in his very ears. But the king had seen enough of the enthusiasm of the populace and did not allow such sounds in the recesses of his palace. So I guess he told them all to be quiet. He didn't want to hear. Maybe it hurt his ears if they're yelling in his ears. So the king gave Mother Mitchell 1 month to carry out his gigantic project. "It is enough," she proudly replied, brandishing her crutch. She must have been holding on to it, I'm thinking. Then, taking leave of the king, she and her cat set out for their home. On the way, Mother Mitchell arranged in her head the plan of the monument. So she thought it all out. She's thinking of it, thinking how she's going to plan on making a cake the size of a capital, which was to immortalize her. Now, did anybody say that, or she's assuming it's going to make her famous, and considering the means of executing it? Well, that means planning it out. Executing it means planning it out. As to its form and size, it was to be as an exact a copy of the Capitol as possible, since the king had willed it. But its outside crust should have the beauty all its own. The dome, a dome on the top, must be adorned with sugar plums of all colors. So that's like the cover. And surmounted by a splendid crown of macaroons, spun sugar, chocolate, and candied fruits. It was no small affair. It means it was a lot of work. Mother Mitchell did not like to lose her time. Her plan of battle once formed. Well, I think what they mean by plan of battle is, she might come up with some challenges. That's what I'm thinking they mean. She recruited on her way all the little pastry cooks of the country, as well as all the tiny 6-year-olds who had a sincere love for the noble callings of scullion and apprentice. Now, what's a scullion? A scullion is a servant assigned simple task. So, where were we? There were plenty of these, as you may suppose, in the country of the greedy. Mother Mitchell had her pick of them. Mother Mitchell, with the help of her crutch, and Fanfreluche, who meowed. Can you make a meow sound? Meow, meow. I can't make it as loud as this. It says, she meowed, who meowed loud enough to be heard 20 miles off, called upon all the millers of the land. So, let's see.